Hello. So I wasn't sure whether I should make this video or not because it's about a thing that I made that's a niche of a niche of a niche. And that's Chaos Reigns, which is an OD&D combat hack by me. It's inspired by Chainmail, but it streamlines everything, and I initially made it for my own solo play. So since it's been released, a lot of people have been using it, a lot more than I expected. I expected zero. Um, so I thought I'd make this video explaining what it is, why I made some of the decisions that I made, and why you might be interested in using it in your solo sessions or group sessions. So jumping right into it, this is a one-sheet booklet, so you can just print it on one sheet of paper, essentially. And all of the rules that you require are on here, but not exactly. So Chaos Reigns is an OD&D combat hack, so what it does mean is that you still need an OD&D retro clone. Luckily, there are a lot of good ones out there, including Delving Deeper, White Box, Fantastic Medieval Adventure Game, Swords and Wizardry. So this will be compatible with pretty much all of them. The one that I use is, actually it's right over there. Let me go get it. It is this, Delving Deeper. That's my OD&D retro clone of choice, but you can use pretty much anything you want. Okay, so let's actually start with character creation. In Chaos Reigns, characters' regular stats are not tracked. Each character comes with a background dictating their life before becoming an adventurer. Information on the character sheet is kept minimal. Other information, including saving throws, is looked up only when required. So the information actually listed is the name, level, class, XP, background, HD, HP, target number, which I'll explain later, which is from your AC, and inventory. So the reason for this is that in OD&D, stats are not as useful as they are in other editions of D&D. Before I say anything else, I should say that I'm not an expert on OD&D. A lot of people know way more than me about this. This is mainly me tweaking it to what I like. So that being said, the upside of this is that you have very minimal character sheets and can even fit 4 into a page or index card really easily. So here's an example of that. Here's my character sheets for my current solo Mega Dungeon campaign using OD&D and Chaos Reigns. As you can see, I can fit a lot of the characters in, even with the portraits and stuff, which I do find important for my own games. I find that portraits actually help me identify the character a lot more, so I do use them. But yeah, without the portraits, you can actually fit a lot more into just an index card. These character sheets are also on the itch.io, so you can get them downloaded and print them out yourself as well. So going into the meat of it, which is the combat procedure, firstly, both sides declare actions, then both sides roll a d6 for initiative, and then actions are resolved in the following order: movement, missile fire / magic, and melee. Then finally, morale is checked if required. This is not all that different from OD&D or Chainmail. If you're coming into it from something else, declaring actions at the start before everything else might seem a little bit strange, but it makes sense in this case because for initiative, the higher can go first or last, but they can also interrupt the actions of the enemy to resolve their actions. So for example, if enemy is about to move to them, they can wait for the enemy to move to them and then attack first. So if you roll equally, it means that the actions occur simultaneously. Characters who are killed during the round get to complete their actions as well. I find being able to interrupt your enemy's attacks leads to a lot more strategic gameplay, especially when you're playing solo. So you can still do your action, but you can delay it a bit, depending on what the enemy is going to be doing. Also note that Missile Fire can interrupt magic spells in most OD&D retro clones, and also in Chainmail. Again, it says here, refer to the original rules to fill in any gaps. And that's definitely a gap that I left out, simply because there is not space to include everything. As for actions that you can do during the round, HD ignoring modifiers equals the number of actions available per turn. I say ignoring modifiers because there's sometimes a +1 or a +2, so you just ignore that. Movement is free. Electing to not move grants an additional action that round. Actions include attacks, additional movement, smashing open doors, casting a spell, etc. So as far as I know, a lot of people's interpretations of chainmail is that you can use your HD as your actions as well. And I really like it because of how HD scales. So fighters get HD a lot faster as they level up. Magic users and clerics get it a bit slower. And as I said, movement is free, so if you don't move, you can do one more action that round, which leads to some interesting choices. This also means that the fighter is a lot more useful in a fight. He can switch out weapons, and remember that fighters can use all sorts of weapons. Clerics can only use blunt weapons, magic users can only use daggers and staves. It really increases the utility of the fighter. But also, as a magic user, this allows you to cast multiple spells per round. Keep in mind that Missile Fire can still interrupt your attacks, so it's a risk versus reward kind of thing, where if you cast multiple spells, you might actually get all of them cancelled out by a missile blow, if the other party wins initiative, for example. So how attacks are actually done is my main quote-unquote innovation in this, in that attacks are done using a 2d6, but unlike chainmail, there's no table lookups or anything like that. Rolling greater than or equals to the target number, which you can get from the AC here, indicates a successful attack, dealing damage. Characters cannot use multiple attacks on the same enemy, so you can't hit the enemy multiple times per round, but you can opt to use up multiple HD in one attack, and if the attack is successful, it will deal that amount of HD times damage. So there's a bunch of reasons I did it like this. So like in chainmail, use a 2d6. I don't like how much table lookup there is in chainmail. I think that's fine in group play, but in solo games where I'm controlling a large bunch of characters, I would like to move at a pretty fast clip. However, like chainmail, there is still that element of, mace can actually hit metal armor better, a dagger might be better for getting through certain types of armor, that kind of thing, but it's in the weapon properties, which I'll go over later. I also want to note that I like 2d6 because as a solo player, I always know what number I have to hit the enemy. A 2d6 has a curve. It makes it much more likely for me to just hit or just miss, which I like quite a bit. I know in the grand scheme of things it kind of like boils down to the same thing. People have converted the 2d6 curve into d20, but I really like the 2d6 curve, and I like the feeling of just missing or just hitting, even if it is just, an illusion. Also, unlike in chainmail, you can't do multiple attacks on the same enemy in the same round. The reason I did this is because it saves time, firstly, because then you're not doing a lot of attack rolls, but also because it creates an interesting strategic decision. Do you want to hit a lot of enemies, or do you want to pull a lot of damage into one of the enemies? It makes it a bit more of a risk versus reward, while also speeding the game up. So, double ones or a 2 is a fumble. The next turn is lost. Double sixes or a 12 is a critical hit. Damage is rolled twice and then summed. Just a side note here, the reason why I didn't do double damage is because if you roll a 1, it's kind of a bummer, at least for me. I've seen variants where people use the max damage, which is 6, and then add a d6 to that. I wanted something in between both of those, and I thought 2d6 summed up was a nice compromise. So, for damage, a weapon's weight determines its damage. Light weapons roll 2d6 and take the lower, medium weapons roll a 1d6, and heavy weapons roll a 2d6 and take the higher value. All missile weapons are two-handed, and that comes into play in the weapons table later on, as you will see. As for missile fire, you deduct 1 from the 2-hit for medium range shots, and deduct 2 from the 2-hit for long range shots. So again, no table lookup like in chainmail, you simply look at your range according to this, and then you deduct 0, 1, or 2 from your shot. So as far as I know, in chainmail you can't fire into an active melee, but I decided that if an attack misses and is less than or equals to 4, then the damage is dealt to an untargeted, random melee participant. I still do like the idea of firing into melee. I feel there should be a cost associated with that. I still think you should be able to do it, and I also didn't want to add additional checks into it, and so I just rolled it into the 2-hit itself. So basically, if you shoot into a melee with a monster and your friend, then you might accidentally hit your friend. Or if it's like 2 monsters and your friend, then you might hit your friend or the other monster. So it's interesting like that. So as for the AC conversion, I have the ACs listed out here, the armor types here, and the target number here. I played around a bunch with this, and I went back and forth on a bunch of stuff. I playtested this over a month or so, and I found that this works pretty well. It's quite diddly. But yeah, shields always add a +1, which is why shields can be sacrificed to nullify damage from a single hit, also known as Sundering Shields. So all of the OD&D retro clones have a morale check, and I didn't really need to include this. I included it because I thought it's a good kind of like just reference. I find myself referring to this quite a bit, and I don't want to pick up delving deeper every time I need to look for a morale check. I also included a simple task resolution system similar to how I think Errant or Block Dodge and Parry do it. For tasks not covered by this or OD&D, skill, time, and equipment are required. Background implies skill. So for example, if you're a thief, that implies that you can lockpick, and that will be a skill. So let's say you want to lockpick something and you are a thief. So with none or 1, it is impossible. With 2, there's a 2 in 6 chance of success. With 3, it's an automatic success. So let's say you just have the skill, you're a thief, but you don't have lockpicks, and you don't have the time to properly do this. It's impossible. Let's say you're a thief and you have lockpicks, but you have limited time. Then you have a 2 in 6 chance of success. And if you have all 3, then it's just an automatic success. It means that you have the time, you have the skill, and you have the equipment. Keep in mind that time here normally means that you have to roll for an encounter, which should be pretty obvious. There are several reasons why I chose a 2 in 6 chance of success. I wanted to keep it all to d6s, just for convenience sake. And I was reading a blog post on Delta's D&D, and they were analyzing all of the times that a d6 was used in OD&D. A lot of the odds are just a 2 in 6. And I think the reason I like that is because if there's a gray area, I always think that there should be slightly lower chances of success. It makes it so that angling for advantages like time, skill, or equipment become much more important. But that's just how I do it. Okay, on to the back page here. So these are a bunch of like weapons, their weights, which indicate their damage, and their special abilities. These I did not come up with myself. Luke Goering, who wrote Wolves Upon the Coast, initially made this weapon special system that I then modified for 2d6. I also modified a few of them to be a little more descriptive as well as fit the system better. But like what I was saying before, if you have a mace, +1 to rolls against metallic or rigid armor. That's similar to how in chainmail you have better odds against like plate mail if you have a mace. Battle axes can be used to rip shields or weapons from the opponent. Spears are interesting. They can interrupt anyone moving within reach to attack them unless the wielder has already acted. So if you remember, interruptions are already a thing in the initiative system. But the way that this is phrased, it makes it so that even if you lose initiative, as long as you have not acted yet, you can still interrupt somebody who is moving within reach. A little bit confusing, but you can figure it out through play. I'm not going to go through all of these, but Greatsword, two-handed, on a killing blow, wielder can roll another attack. This can be triggered multiple times. This is awesome. It led to some pretty crazy moments in my campaign at least. Keep in mind that missile weapons are all two-handed, including a sling. The way I think about this is that even though you're using one hand for the sling, you're still like moving your entire body to throw it, and you also have to load the grenade, so, you know, keeping things simple, all of them are two-handed. Going into the credits, we have Jared Crater, who you might know from Space Penguin Inc., who did the feedback and editing, and he did it for free. Very generous of him. He just liked the project a lot. So thank you, Jared. We have Luke Goering for Wolves, from which the weapon specials are modified. And we have Cordell Stewart, also known as Milton, and Paul Van Kuren for valuable feedback and input. These guys are masters of chainmail, and I am very glad to have consulted them on a lot of different things, and they gave a lot of valuable feedback for how to improve this as a whole. So that's an overview and some designer's notes from Chaos Reigns. I say designer, but I basically took a bunch of stuff that I liked and mishmashed it together. But that's basically all of OSR, so I guess that's fine. A lot of people have liked it quite a bit. I know some people who are working on hacks of it. I know somebody who's making a full-blown system out of it. And I have been approached by some people, and there may or may not be a small print run of this in cardstock in the future. I don't know. But generally, the reception seems to be very good, which I'm really happy about. I really thought nobody would care because, you know, it's just... I mean, it's a combat hack of OD&D inspired by chainmail. That's pretty niche. That's it. I know it's not perfect, and I'm constantly improving it. Some of the phrasing might be a bit off. For example, actions, right? Movement is an action, so I could adjust it. You can have 2 actions since you can forego movement to get an action. But the reason I phrased it like that is so that I can, you know, emphasize that movement is the default kind of thing that you will be doing. Small things like that where I'm not sure whether I phrased it just right, or I was too verbose, or I was too terse. You know, it's really hard to tell. So I'll be continuing to modify this and update it based on feedback. I would love to know what you think. Like, genuinely, you can leave a comment down below, or you can send me a message on Discord, or you can put a comment on the itch page. I'll put all the links to all the stuff below. If you like what I'm doing and you would like to see more of this content, please hit like and subscribe. Unfortunately, I'm still a slave to the algorithm, so, you know, there's that. Oh, and also tell me if you've used it in your games. I'm super happy whenever I hear that people have gotten something out of my tutorials or my videos or the stuff I make. The main reason I do this is I want to help people out. I want to show people how easy it is to start making things and start playing and having a fun time doing that. You know, like, for example, this, I didn't expect anybody to like it, but it was a huge boost of encouragement to know that people liked my stuff. So that keeps me going. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. In any case, thank you for watching my video as always, and I'll see you around next time.